Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. And, well, it's that time again. Time for another show. The Kagro in the Morning radio show is live now. Thanks, Bill, for waking us up. Kagro X has the latest on what the COVIDiots are eating, drinking, injecting, and or shoving up their butts. And we keep pretty close tabs on that for some reason to avoid getting the COVID vaccine because it's 2021 in America. It's true, they have a new... I don't know what to tell you. They have a new alternative medicine. It's quite a day for stories that we could waste forever on. And there are plenty of them. Ugh, I don't even know where to start on what's happening with the latest COVID treatment. So they've graduated from hydroxychloroquine, which then they couldn't get prescriptions for because no one would give them prescriptions, and they found out it was in fish tank medicine, so they drank their fish tanks / fish tank medicine, and then they moved on, of course, to the horse paste, ivermectin, but that's only for the people who weren't either washing themselves with or actually injecting ivermectin sheep drench on their skin or under their skin, or, oh God, who knows what else they were doing, drinking it, I don't know. They found another one, and I don't know what to tell you. It's as if someone were trolling these guys. I mean, I wish we could claim credit for it because they're like incrementally making them ingest or otherwise treat themselves with increasingly, obvious, stupid, trolly jokes. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't look up the pronunciation of this thing, and I don't even care. But what is it? Was it? I think I've lost the name of stuff. And did I I don't know whether I put an article on this aside or not, because it was just too ridiculous. But they are now ingesting a antibacterial, usually used as a topical antibacterial wash, but apparently also, and this is the hook of the story, a ingredient, at least in some, I guess, commercially available douche products. So they're drinking / gargling douches. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I thought we would take the show seriously today, but I guess not. That's what they're doing. Ah, yeah, here it is. I put aside, not my favorite source of information on this stuff, the Midas Touch guys, but anti-vaxxers, they tweet, are now experimenting fighting COVID by ingesting betadine, maybe is the pronunciation. It looks like beta, beta, and D-I-N-E. That's a sort of usual kind of suffix we find in the medical area. Betadine, betadine, an antibacterial topical solution used for cuts and scrapes, and also in douches. So betadine is highly toxic and poisonous when ingested. So don't do that. Some people, of course, are probably using. I've heard tell when you push on them and you say, "Why are you? What are you doing drinking the douches, guys?" And they say, "We're not, libtard. That shows what you know. I can't believe you're such a jerk. Everyone knows we're only using it as nasal wash or gargle." Which, I don't know. I mean, look, I've been advised to use nasal wash off-label as a gargle before, although I guess it's not off-label. But anyway, they say don't drink it, and so I don't. And I'm sure that there are some people who are like, well, I'm careful not to drink it because I know it's toxic and poisonous when ingested. Toxic and poisonous. That's what this tweet says. So it's a medical authority I'm reading here. But you know how good they are at following the instructions with their medications, right? So, I've got some worries about that. Of course, some people will probably show up in the hospital and having ingested it, or they didn't understand that it wasn't supposed to be used thus in such a way. And now they're being hospitalized, at which point, really, the hospital staff should just be empowered to just beat you around about the head and neck and throw you in the dumpster in the back. There's no reason anybody should be getting treatment for that because, duh. And again, it really feels like, if I didn't know, well, I don't know. I was going to say, if I didn't know better, and I guess I don't know better than this, if I didn't know how, I don't know, crazy it would sound, compared, I guess, to drinking douches, I would say there's a troll factory in Russia just saying, what can we do with these people? We could probably make them eat stuff, and it's just going to embarrass the United States as a country. What should be next? If the horse paste didn't do it for you, I would imagine the douches would probably be found pretty embarrassing. I don't know. It does, however, lend itself to song parody, and I am working on the Summer's Eve Makes Me Feel Fine kind of thing, but I'm not a singer, and I don't play enough instruments to do my own song parodies, so we'll hand that off to somebody else. Maybe you can work on it. I don't know. That seems pretty amazing. And the Midas Touch guys had a whole thread on it, and all sorts of people talking about the idiotic things that they're doing with it, and it's kind of sad. And I guess that's where we are in America. The other, I guess, internet sensation last night, Twitter sensation, was the Met Gala, which I guess you can watch the red carpet arrivals on television, but I'm just not enough of a celebrity watcher to have done that. But everybody else who was into it did it, I guess. And among the weird thing, the whole deal is, I guess, what you're wearing is a big deal on the thing. It's a very, very big fashion moment, even more so than the Oscars. The practice is to purposefully be outrageous, provocative, or avant-garde, I guess, in your garb, in your costume, essentially. And it's risen to the level of where it's costuming. But okay, whatever. Celebrities are into that. Anyway, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was there. She's a New York congresswoman, and the event was taking place in New York. And it's a big deal. And she showed up in this very interesting thing. This is an actual fashion statement. She showed up, I guess, maybe taking her cues from Melania Trump with wording inscribed, worked into the fabric of her dress. She had this very, the big white gown, kind of like a form-fitting gown that made for a good tablet on which to scroll "Tax the Rich" in big red letters, like it had been painted on to the dress. Tax the rich. And of course, being purposefully obtuse, the right insisted on purposely misunderstanding what was going on here and saying, oh, look at this. But they were joined in it by the New York Times fashion editor, critic. I think she describes herself in the Twitter bio as fashion director / critic. So, all right, we all know what a New York Times fashion critic is likely to be writing about, but she seemed to have missed the whole point too. Vanessa Friedman joined in it, but the right-wing people were very openly writing things like, well, the cost of a ticket to one of this Met Gala is, I guess, reportedly somewhere in the $30,000 range. I think I've seen $30,000 and $35,000, and cost of a full table. You can buy a whole table, $275,000. And here she is at a expensive hoity-toity event that costs $30,000 with "Tax the Rich" on her dress. Isn't that hypocritical? Because, of course, obviously, you would have to be rich to be able to afford such a ticket. And overlooking the very, 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 very extremely obvious and common practice of people sometimes basically gifting those tickets to celebrities of one level or another. Almost certainly, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not pay $30,000, buy herself a ticket, go to the event to wear a "Tax the Rich" dress. She was probably handed a ticket by somebody who had bought a table and wanted the celebrity power, including political celebrity power at their table. And probably also knew very well that she was going to do something like this. And anyway, I found it amazing. So Vanessa Friedman was beside herself, not just the online right, who, of course, intentionally lost their mind about this thing, but Vanessa Friedman writing about how problematic or complicated what a complicated proposition it is for a socialist-leaning, left-wing Democratic representative to show up at an expensive event in a tax-the-rich dress, which, to me, it was like, okay, I mean, it was a bold thing to do, but what did you expect her to do, by the way? Was it better to have shown up just dressed regular, like in a let's pretend there's no problems and we're all just here to be famous dress, and write that on your dress? That's her message. That's always been her message. And, she went to this place because there would be a bunch of rich people there, many of whom would say, yeah, you probably should tax me more. And so she carried this central message of her campaign into the place where probably a lot of those people will end up donating to her. And, there will be some who are, resistant to that, who are also at the gala, but it couldn't be a more perfect setting. And for Vanessa Friedman not to be able to grasp this and to miss the fact that this was as obvious an actual literal fashion statement. And the New York Times fashion critic is flummoxed by this. I don't understand. How dare she do that? What did she... I guess her first tweet on the subject was Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez attending the $35,000 a ticket Met Gala in a Brother Velies gown. I don't know how to pronounce it. Vellies. Sorry, I should be giving better credit to the designer. Blaring tax the rich is a complicated proposition. It is not. It is simple and straightforward, and there's nothing to it. And as others pointed out, she used a free ticket to a party for rich people to demand that they all be taxed more. As moderate Dems pretend there's no way to pay for a budget bill covering childcare, healthcare, climate, housing, and more, this all makes perfect sense unless you're being deliberately obtuse, which she is. By the way, that comment credited to Kristen Mink, who is running for Montgomery County Council in the D.C. suburbs, Montgomery County, Maryland. So there you go. You might want to get on board there. Candidate for Montgomery County Council, a former teacher, current organizer, and special projects manager, Kristen, Kristin, Mink, in case you want to join along. And you can find her on Twitter, by the way, it's Kristen Mink _. The Mink _. That's the order of it. Underscore after the K in Mink. I don't know. But well put. And, of course, everybody pointing out, it was a free ticket. She made good use of it. By the way, you put her message all over social media. You couldn't buy that kind of advertising, even for $35,000, which she didn't pay in all likelihood. But Vanessa seemed intent on this point, saying, to all the people claiming AOC got a, quote, free ticket to the hashtag Met Gala, because she has to hashtag everything, just because she did not pay for it does not mean it is, quote, free. So there's no such thing as a free lunch argument. Someone paid $35,000 for her to attend. Just seems like she might have wanted that money used for something other than an elite party ticket. And it was used for something other than an elite party ticket. For one thing, it was used to carry that effing message and put it in front of your face, only for you to misunderstand it, quite willingly. But what do you think she could have used the $35,000 for? Well, she could have done an ad campaign asking that the rich be taxed. But basically, that's what she did, and she did it very well because everybody actually noticed it, as opposed to taking out, say, an ad in the New York Times, for instance, saying tax the rich. That would have been, everyone would have passed by that. No one would have taken a second look at it. But now, this is all over the place. But secondly, you might point out, if she didn't buy the ticket, someone paid $35,000 for her to attend. Yes. It just seems like she, AOC, might have wanted that money used for something other than an elite party ticket. You could have fed the poor with it. Well, you might have, but it wasn't her money. So I'm kind of curious, like, on what basis would AOC say, like, you're sitting there and someone calls you up and says, would you like to go to the Met Gala? And if you do, it's okay if you wear a tax the rich dress. Or maybe they don't think about that at all. Would you like to go to the Met Gala and sit at my table? I want you to be, part of the star power of my table. Make me look good by reflecting in your glow, whatever it might be. And she says, I'm against it in principle. Here's what I would like you to do with the $35,000 instead. I think you should set up a soup kitchen in my district, and then click, right? Like, the person is like, I want you to be at the table to reflect glory upon me, not tell me what else I should or could do with my $35,000. I know what I can do with $35,000. I do it all the time. It's probably wasteful, but she's in no position to say, rather than send me to the party, I believe you should buy $35,000 worth of toys for tots. Prepare now for the Christmas season. I'm not conducting a war on Christmas. Go ahead. Well, you don't get a call from somebody like that and say, here's how you should spend your money instead. Because one thing, you'll never get a call like that again. And maybe that's okay with some people. Maybe Bernie Sanders would say, yeah, that's not for me. Whereas AOC says, I think I could probably use this to my advantage in many ways. And to my advantage, I mean to everyone else's advantage, because that's kind of my agenda. I make it my business to fight on behalf of others. So what would be the most, provocative and therefore widely noticed message I could carry, but that's also consistent with my general stances? Well, how about tax the rich? Because that one would be pretty ironic. Don't you think? I could go with feed the hungry. I could go with Green New Deal and wear a green dress. But, that's not quite the same thing as showing up to an ostentatious display of wealth with a tax the rich dress on. And on top of that, she was probably applauded by a vast majority of the audience. But not Vanessa Friedman, fashion critic for the New York Times. I found it amazing that she totally missed that, and that she decided to fight on with that. Oh, all you people claiming that it's a free ticket. Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch, everybody. And, also those of us who sort of know how those things work. I got another tweet somewhere along the line from Ira Goldman saying, by the way, assuming AOC is following the ethics rules, no one gave her a ticket. The rules are, someone can buy it. You're not supposed to say they gave her a ticket or that they paid for a ticket for her. You're supposed to say that an event sponsor, bought a table somewhere, and you're allowed to give those tickets away, but you're not allowed to say that you gave it to them or gift. She's not allowed to accept that as a gift. But as long as it never really comes into her possession, but instead she's an invited guest of the sponsor of a table, I guess that's the way they handle it. And people go for those things all the time. And I guess it's a little suspect if you believe that any sort of money spent on anybody for any reason is buying influence. And I suppose to an extent it is. But, I think she did a much better thing with it than showing up in a dress that said nothing and simply instead exposing herself to, she's a hypocrite for going to a $35,000 ticket event and then having to explain, I didn't pay. Well, then what were you doing there? You just went to a party and spent $35,000. This was the only way for her to claim that she was actually doing any work on anybody's behalf and have everybody able to see it. I mean, you could, of course, attend the event and then lecture the people or discuss kindly and openly with the people at your table who presumably, have similar feelings, or else the sponsor of the table is setting people up for a miserable evening, and talk to the rest of the table about what's going on and the need to raise taxes on the rich and, start social programs and take care of people in general and keep an eye on things elsewhere. Green New Deal, of course, very central. She could have that discussion, But it's a lot more difficult to convince people that you were out there doing your constituents' bidding at a fancy get-together like that. You just wanted to go to a party and be comfortable with the in-crowd. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make myself instantly, on the outs with the in-crowd and make them uncomfortable, unless, of course, they all happen to agree, in which case, what better place for me to be spending my time? A bunch of rich people who can help elect like-minded Democrats to Congress? Cool. So anyway, I don't know. I found it rather amazing, but I found it even more amazing that the New York Times fashion critic had to say, well, no, all you who are saying that she didn't pay for the ticket, well, somebody did, and she could have directed the money else. No, she could not have. She could not have. So then it would have been probably an in-kind contribution at that point. If she had directed it, of course, to her campaign, that would be outrageous. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I didn't mean to spend any time on the Met Gala, but I did mean to spend some time on, the weirdness of New York Times people digging in like that and refusing to let go of the situation. Well, we're going to have this discussion. This is going to go on. Yes, it's true that she didn't pay for the ticket, and you're basically right for saying she didn't pay for the ticket. But I am going to use a technicality to continue this conversation, about which I am completely wrong. Well, one of only a few things that we could have spent all of our time on. And I'm not even talking about, I haven't gotten to the other big internet sensation of the evening, which was, I don't know how this stuff happens, Nicki Minaj, recording artist, I guess is what you would say now. Otherwise you would say musician, but I think more generally recording artist. And, I know who she is. She's famous enough to break through to, 50 plus, suburban white person thing. I've heard the name. I don't know if I could match her name with songs, but probably you would play one and say, I've seen something like that on TV. Sure. Anyway, I guess she didn't come right out and just say she was anti-vax, but tweeted something about, I guess she skipped the MTV Video Music Awards, which were also the other evening. Not last night, but 2 nights ago, I think. And she skipped the awards, and okay, people do that. And it's a good idea to skip things that are crowded now, generally. And so I guess everybody wondered whether maybe she was being extremely cautious about COVID. But I guess she's not vaccinated, which, is not a great idea. But on the other hand, if you're not vaccinated, it would be a good idea, to the extent that you could have good ideas if you're, a willing resistor to the vaccination, to say, I'm not going to go inject myself into this crowd. That was good. That was considerate. But I guess, being a celebrity, people are not satisfied with anything you do, so they were wondering why she wasn't. What's the real reason you're not going to the Video Music Awards? Or what's the real reason you're not getting vaccinated? That came out first, which was, according to her, you know how these things go. You have various experts you listen to in your life, and sometimes your priorities are a little bit different from everybody else's. Her priority was, her now probably most infamous tweet, I would guess. My cousin in Trinidad, this is like the new Canadian girlfriend. She's got, I'm sure, cousins in Trinidad, but my cousin in Trinidad won't get the vaccine. Doesn't say she wouldn't get the vaccine, I guess, but my cousin in Trinidad won't get the vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent. So that's not even to get to the true heart, I think, of the tweet, the meat of the tweet, if you will. My cousin in Trinidad won't get the vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent. Now, we don't know anything about that. But basically, now, vaccine thought leaders in this country are about my cousin's friend had this thing happen. He became impotent. His testicles became swollen. She goes with the medical terminology here. Very polite, all that. His friend was weeks away from getting married. Now the girl called off the wedding. So just pray on it and make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied. Which is kind of like, it's, there's a nice message to make sure you're comfortable with your medical treatment and that you're not being bullied, just generally speaking. I don't believe that that's necessarily the case with the vaccine, but, generally speaking, that's true. You don't want people feeling bullied into their medical decisions. There's a little bit of specious weirdness to, basing the whole thing on my cousin in Trinidad has a friend who was getting married and he got the shot and he became impotent because his testicles became swollen, which, I've not heard that as a side effect. I guess there's always the first time for everything. But then there's also the weirdness of, he was weeks away from getting married and the girl has called off the wedding. Now, either the girl is the woman, I suppose, unless he's marrying an underager. I don't know what the laws are like there in Trinidad, but she may be, is she the baddie in all this? Like, your fiance gets the vaccine, smart thing to do, taking care, looking out for their future health and their lives together, and suffers this terrible side effect of swollen testicles and impotence. And she calls off the wedding, which, that seems a little insensitive and mean. Why aren't we talking about this woman calling off? But maybe she's just intent on starting a family, and that's the most important thing to her. But still, you'd think you could approach this more sensitively, and maybe this is reversible, or perhaps we could adopt, or, you never know. There's all sorts of solutions that could become, could be discussed ahead of the wedding. But no one's talking about this woman calling off the wedding, which is really something else. But I don't know. It seems to me like he's not getting enough sympathy in all this. But the cousin won't get the vaccine as a result. No word on whether Nicki Minaj herself is getting it. But it sounds like the cousin's friend might be covering up for something else. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning. I have good news to report. Many more listeners like you are making critical contributions that keep our show on the air. Makes good sense, of course, and patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple. Now you can make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for helping keep you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all of your support. We literally could not do this without you. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So there are some other comments on the subject out there, and it probably has occurred to you that maybe if any of this is true, maybe the wedding was called off because the guy shows up. David Pakman, fellow podcaster, who tweeted late last night, I guess, or maybe not all that late last night after all, in a way that I guess deserves just to be read. I've not heard anybody use this terminology. Is it maybe possible these swollen apple bags? Apple bags? I'm not certain that I've ever heard that. And did he mean that? Did Twitter auto-correct that into something else from, I don't know. Is it maybe possible the swollen apple bags were an STD from cheating, and that's why the wedding was called off? Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, my guess is that for the guy to show up and I have this terrible condition now, that is basically an STD. How did you get it? And I guess nobody's believing the toilet seat, thing anymore. So, I got it. It was a side effect from getting the vaccine. Oh, everyone will believe that now. Apparently, I mean, in this douche-chugging world of ours, this horse-paste eating world we live in, I guess anybody can talk their way out of anything by saying the vaccine made me do it. Rob a bank, the vaccine made me do it. It's a side effect. I don't know. Anyway, also among the comments is the comment of this blue check-marked tweeter, Dr. Raven, the science maven. who tweets as Raven SCI Science, like Raven SCI Maven, and she offers to discuss the vaccine with Nicki. And I don't know whether she takes her up on it, but maybe she should. She, too, a young-looking black woman who says, Nicki, if you want to chat with a scientist and fan about the vaccine, I'm happy to talk. Much love, be safe. Very nice, sort of the message that I think just about anybody would be happy to get, and maybe Nicki Minaj, too. And she says, by the way, we're both rappers, LOL. Here's a rap I made about the vaccine, which, you know, that's not easy to do. And I was looking at it, and it's closed captioned. And I'm looking at the scientific terminology she's using because she's a doctor. That stuff rolls off the tongue for well-trained doctors, right? And I'm like, how do you make this fit into a rap? Now I had to turn the sound up. So now it's here. You want to hear Dr. Raven, the science maven, rap about the vaccine? It's kind of actually worth it. And the clip is only a minute. And I don't know. I guess I can't play the whole thing because even if I get permission, or Dr. Raven, the science maven, would be more than thrilled to have me playing the whole thing on the air. I don't think the YouTube algorithm knows or cares whether I've got permission. So to the extent that although I guess if she's just distributing it, it's probably not recorded for distribution, so maybe I'm not violating. I don't know. Let me play a little bit of it just so you get some sense of it. Can I do that through this? Oh my goodness. All right, well, maybe I'll turn down the bass. I didn't think about that possibility. Do I have anything that can do that is the next question. I'm sure that I do. Let's see. There's an equalizer on here somewhere. Oh, but it's not in that part of the chain. All right, so maybe I'll turn the overdrive off and turn the sound down on the Firefox for just a second. But all right, or maybe it's meant to be overdriven bass. I don't know. I mean, that's not bad, really. I mean, given what the topic you're dealing with here and getting these words in, I'm always amazed at lyricists who are able to do this sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether we're ready to declare it the greatest thing since Schoolhouse Rock, but it's pretty good. And, she's using her time well when she's not being a doctor or a research associate somewhere else, explaining it to people in language they can understand. If you can understand that. I mean, I saw it closed captioned, and, she's talking over my head, so I don't know whether I understand it or not. But anyway, very interesting, just what people are doing. And, other people are creating a 2-hour podcast based off of Nicki Minaj's tweet about her Trinidadian cousin's friend's balls. But so I can't be too critical. All right. I want to move on to something equally frivolous, but maybe something you would enjoy hearing about. I have the raw story report of I think I have at least 2 raw story reports of the latest right-wing COVID-19 deaths that we can all get behind and cheer, even though we're not supposed to be doing that, and to be doing this in the middle of the Jewish High Holy Days and the Day of Atonement coming up later on this week, Thursday. Reminder, I'll be off the air atoning for taking, what? You're going to be atoning for what you're about. Yeah, right. I'm atoning for this, this next segment coming up is part of what I'll be atoning for. And this one, might as well get our money's worth here, right? Colorado pastor who mocked AIDS deaths and spread vaccine conspiracy theories dies from COVID-19. And just so that I get through the atonement, within the 24 hours allotted for it, we'll just say, how awful. you know, because if we speak my mind about it, we're going to need a week of atonement, and, you know, you're fasting, and there's only so long I'm going to last without food. Christian radio host Bob Enyart, it's Enyart. I don't know him, never heard of him. You'll be shocked to know that he is wearing a graying goatee on his face, the uniform of the right-wing pastor idiot. But Christian radio host Bob Enyart became infamous during his career for reading obituaries from people who died of AIDS while playing the Queen song, Another One Bites the Dust. So, super friendly guy. And, I don't know how much atonement he did, but I guess we'll find out whether he needed to do more if you're a believer in the whole, categorization system, the taxonomy of Christian life after death, I guess. Well, anyway, now he's the one who is gone, says Raw Story. After contracting COVID, Enyart ended up in the hospital after caring for his wife with the virus, and he lasted less than 2 weeks with the disease. The announcement was made by Real Science Radio co-host Fred Williams. The Friendly Atheist reported. And they're probably right. Anyway, Williams posted the news on Facebook. He was one of the smartest and without question the wisest person I've known, said Williams. Williams is Real Science Radio co-host. Now, what made him say that this guy who made this monumentally stupid, took this monumentally insensitive stance and then lots of stupid other ones that led to his death, what makes him wise? I have no idea, but you're going to have to find a new wisest person. Enyart not only refused to get a COVID vaccine, he believed a false conspiracy theory that researchers, quote, tested these 3 products, the vaccines, on the cells of aborted babies. Testing vaccines on anything dead, of course, wouldn't work because there would be no blood to deliver the vaccine to the system. But, he didn't want to make sense out of this theory. He just wanted people in his church to be scared or morally opposed to taking the vaccine. LGBTQ broadcaster Dan Savage tweeted that he actually teared up at the news, saying, "My friends who died of AIDS were mocked and condemned by this a-hole and others like him. Each and every one of my dead friends would have been first in line to get vaccinated against HIV to protect themselves and others. And others," he emphasizes afterwards, not just themselves. And this guy couldn't be bothered to get vaccinated against COVID to even protect himself. He encouraged others to put themselves at risk, to put others at risk. He was the moral equivalent of some a-hole poking holes in condoms in 1986. This is a guy who filed a lawsuit against Colorado's COVID restrictions, only to have a Trump-appointed judge grant a temporary restraining order that allowed indoor churches to open up to the masses without having to wear masks. How many people caught the virus because of that irresponsible lawsuit? The Friendly Atheist asked. And I guess you can read the full Friendly Atheist report on it elsewhere, but I am assuming that our friends at Raw Story, specifically, which friend was it? Sarah Burris, has taken the highlights of this and shared them with us. And that's not the only one among the many who have died. The Delta virus, the Delta variant, seems to be really highly targeted, really efficient at delivering all those deaths that we wondered, where are they, with the earlier versions of the virus. I don't understand how it is, if it's so contagious and so out there, that these people who are showing up at stores and protesting mask mandates or tearing the masks off other people or yelling at the staff about masking being terrible, how come they're not getting the virus and dying? And the answer is, I guess, now with Delta, they are. As a matter of fact, that story brought to my attention by, I think Rebecca Roman sent me this, and it was I mentioned that Ron Filipkowski was really out there killing it with the video coverage of all this stuff. This is the video of Veronica Wolski before she got sick, videotaping her. Looks like she's videotaping herself on her phone, harassing Staples employees over their mask policy. And I don't know. I haven't heard this tape, but maybe we can go and take a look at it and listen to it and see whether she's particularly annoying. And then if so, we can read the story about her also dying of COVID. Well, I mean, I think I've kind of ruined that story. Spoiler, she dies of COVID. Let's see. Well, we got to turn on the sound
It's
here.
not real obvious that I'm videoing.
She thinks she's being very sneaky about the videoing. Now, she's like I said, looks like she's, pointed her camera back up at her face, and she's maybe put her phone down in her shopping cart or something that she's wheeling through. Now she's on her way into the store, and I guess this is what her idea of a joke. She's wearing a mask, but she's wearing a Zorro mask, along with a Zorro hat, by the way. And I imagine, no face mask. And so when she gets confronted by the store clerks, where's your mask? She'll say, I'm wearing a mask. And then argue with them about that. That's my guess. I've spoiled this one for you as well. But it's a visual element, and you don't know that because it's radio.
Hello.
Here she comes.
I have a face mask on, honey. And I have a medical exemption and a doctor's note. So I have, somebody sent me an email.
Ma'am, I'm not helping you.
I'll get the manager, please. I have a medical exemption.
She has a medical exemption. All right. Well, she never gets to the part where she shows the medical exemption or anything. Anyway, that's followed up by Ron Filipkowski's next tweet, which is sort of one of those how it started, how it's going thing. Here she is out in front of her never comply sign attached to a bridge fence somewhere. She's freeway blogging. I guess I kind of support that. So anyway, there she is tweeting out her message. Or maybe someone else tweeting a picture of her, and along with the note, bravery, not slavery. And that's how it started. And how is it going? Here is a photo of, what's her name? Veronica Wolski in her hospital bed with the oxygen mask on. Not looking too good. And I guess that was the last photo of her ever circulated before she died, because she's gone now. She had a medical exemption from her doctor, Ron Filipkowski says. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone else responding to Filipkowski saying she had a medical exemption from her doctor to catch COVID. You cannot make this stuff up. And another person's answer here, who still goes to Staples? That's a good question, too. So she was kind of destined for the grave anyway, as we all are, and the ash heap of history, as it turns out, as well. So COVID Delta variant doing a lot of the reaping that, we've all been wondering, where is it and how come it's so long in coming? All right, let's see. What other items have we in storage for you? Okay, there's a couple of sort of random bits. How can we put this in normal, responsible order here? Probably not. There's no way to do it. Let's see. So we'll just go through the things we set aside and make it that kind of show for this Tuesday. Let me open up the Twitter thing so we can see what comments are coming in as well, in case anyone wants to change our direction. That's interesting. Justice had sent me something earlier on when we were talking about the tax the rich thing. No one is complaining about Carolyn Maloney's dress and ticket cost. Now, Carolyn Maloney may have, I think she's wealthy enough to have possibly paid for her own ticket, but whether she did or not, I don't know. What is this dress? I would complain about it just on principle. But this, too, carries some sort of written message all over it, and I don't know if I can enlarge this thing big enough here. What is this? Does it maybe have... Oh, okay. So she's got an ERA, yes, clutch purse, and a, something for women, rights for women, votes for women, a banner. It looks like it's a dress, and this picture may be several years old, possibly, too. It kind of looks like it, but, a women's right and an homage to the suffragettes, I guess, in a dress made out of what looks like enlarged versions of the sashes that they used to wear when they marched. That's true. No one I know of was complaining about that. But she's not as widely favored as a target as AOC. So a good observation there. I can share that tweet with everybody anybody who's listening live can see it, and I'll put it in the roundup. Truro Renfro commenting on things here today. Nicki Minaj was channeling Simone from Ferris Bueller. Yeah, okay. My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid who's going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at the 31 Flavors last night. I guess it's pretty serious. And then we know she's Simone because, right, doesn't, what's his name? Ben Stein? His guy. Thank you, Simone. I think I can envision the scene. All right, well, let's see. That's pretty good. Also, by the way, Truro Renfro sharing actual footage of Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend leaving the pharmacy after his vaccination. A now very popular gif from a South Park episode, which I guess if you've seen it, you know which one it is. All right, let's see. A couple of other things to pick up on. Oh, you know what? While we're in the Twitter column, Adam McGinnis sent something yesterday which he said was a good article for today's show, and I think probably it is. And oh my gosh, it's serious. So okay, let's sidetrack for just a moment and talk about something relatively serious. This is a tweet from Ben Collins. Ben Collins, the senior reporter on the dystopia beat, as he puts it, over at NBC News. Incredible reporting by Tyler Kincaid, who brings this story and the excerpt from the story that's shared here. The schools where fights about critical race theory, and that, of course, enclosed in scare quotes, I guess as it should be, because it means many different things to many different people. That would be, means something real to actual scholars and whatever the hell you want it to everybody else. Schools where fights about critical race theory have been the loudest are also schools where the share of students of color has dramatically risen over the last 30 years. So it makes a certain amount of sense, anxious white people. I mean, not good sense. It's just sense. We understand what's going on here. Anxious white people who see the demographics of their neighborhoods changing, as neighborhoods often do. But when I say changing, I mean looking less like me is, I guess, what's worrying. And lo and behold, our own Loudoun County is on that map. And yeah, the demographics of Loudoun County have changed dramatically over the last 30 years. They developed the place. When it was a cow pasture 30 years ago, as it still was, it was a mostly white and mostly Republican area. When they built houses here and people could come and live here without being farmers, well, the complexion of the neighborhood, literally the complexion of the neighborhood changed. And now it is a very diverse neighborhood. It's still majority white. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But, it's a very highly mixed area. It's not a great deal of, there's still not a great deal of black residents, African-American black residents. But it ain't zero, for one thing. And also very heavily Indian and East Asian, as well as South Asian, and lots of Latinos of all kinds. So it is changing dramatically, and for the better. It's one of the better features of this area, if you ask me. But it's listed along with Gwinnett. Is it Gwinnett or Gwinnett? Gwinnett County, Georgia, Carroll School District, ISD, Carroll ISD, Southlake, Texas, Rochester, Minnesota, and Fairfax County, Virginia. Let's see. This is many school districts with critical race theory battles are diversifying quickly. An NBC analysis found that the share of students of color in the average white student's school has risen in dozens of districts with contentious debates over diversity initiatives. And I guess this is supposed to be the percentage of students of color from 1994. Here in Loudoun County, 14.9%. That's not nobody, right? But now up to 44.5% in 2020. That is a pretty significant rise. Not the most significant rise. It's about average for this chart. Gwinnett, whatever it is, county in Georgia, had the most dramatic rise. In terms of the change, the growth, the percentage growth, Loudoun County was 29.5% growth. Gwinnett County, 52.3% growth from 13.1% students of color to 65.4% students of color. And guess what? You should lose the critical race theory battle in Gwinnett County because the vast majority of students in the high schools there are students of color, so you should lose. Anyway, I was curious about the bulk of the reporting and how does that come out. This is from the article over at NBCnews.com. Schools facing critical race theory battles are diversifying rapidly, analysis finds. Many of the schools facing backlash over initiatives are diversifying faster than the national average. So maybe it's white people in panic, very literally about the changing complexion of their neighborhoods, which, they should maybe get used to. Or I guess if they're really crazy, they could just up and leave. But yeah, I think that the protests, the volume of the protests in Loudoun County and Fairfax County, Virginia, are driven by an additional factor, which is that national Republicans and the national Republican activist class lives here and, would ordinarily be paying attention to abortion or something else that they spend their time on. But this is something that then this gives them the opportunity to go to their local school board. And of course, they think, I'm a big time national Republican operative. And these rubes who are just showing up and complaining about something at the school board, God bless them. I'm on the same side, but they don't really know how to handle themselves. I will show up and do my professional lobbying job on these backwater rubes who populate the school board here, and I'll win them over with my amazing rhetorical ability and verbal charm. And I think that's what's going on. Plus, it gives them the opportunity to deliver, a focused group, field-tested line to the local press, the local rubes covering the local rubes, and say, I'm just a concerned parent. I'm just a particularly articulate and well-versed concerned parent with a notebook, a 3-ring binder full of statistics from around the country that I happen to have prepared for my speech to the school board. And, it worked to some extent. So very interesting. And I don't know. I think we actually distilled the correct point out of this, which is that we'll find that the loudest protests are coming from the places where the change is the greatest. So, all right. I think we can, we don't necessarily have to wade all the way through the article, but I might just do that and see if there's not more that we can't distill from it. In the meantime, other things that I wanted to bring to your attention are also available. One out in California. Today is that thing that they used to call Election Day, but now we call the end of the period during which you're able to register your vote in the California recall. And I just thought I would spend a few minutes on the California recall. First of all, I guess just before the break, a little bit on what Larry Elder and his troops are up to. And this too from NBC News, a little bit of I don't know whether they revealed too much or a spoiler of an ending. As Newsom leads California recall polls, Larry Elder pushes baseless fraud claims. A pretty generic headline for what's actually going on here. A website paid for by Elder's campaign on yesterday, predicted his defeat. That's not normally what you do with your own websites. And blamed unsubstantiated fraud claims. In other words, they put out a little too early the claim that everything was rigged and that everybody should protest. Republicans in Tuesday's California gubernatorial recall election are already laying the groundwork to argue the election was stolen even before a single ballot is reported or a victor declared. An increasingly common tactic in conservative circles, and you can thank Donald Trump for that. He certainly popularized it. Republican Larry Elder appealed on Monday to his supporters to use an online form to report fraud, which claimed it had, quote, detected fraud in the, quote, results of the California recall election, quote, resulting in Governor Gavin Newsom being reinstated as governor. The only problem, on Monday when the link was live on Elder's campaign site, the election hadn't even happened yet. No results had been released, and Elder was still campaigning to replace Newsom as governor. That's all likelihood, of course, he will lose, but it was unique and interesting, of course, to tell people, please copy and paste this letter and send it to your local school or elections board that you have witnessed actual fraud. You've detected fraud in the results which haven't been released yet. Statistical analyses used to detect fraud in elections held in third world nations such as Russia, Venezuela, and Iran have detected fraud in California, resulting in Governor Gavin Newsom being reinstated as governor, the site reads, and that's their, I guess, suggested text for you to write to your elections board. The primary analytical tool used was Benford's Law and can be readily reproduced. So all these people know Benford's Law, right? The site added on Monday afternoon a disclaimer saying it was, quote, paid for by Larry Elder Ballot Measure Committee Recall Newsom Committee. All combined into one committee, I guess, with major funding from Elder's gubernatorial campaign. The most recent polls show Newsom is likely to survive the attempt to remove him from office in Tuesday's recall election, thankfully. Elder and other Republicans have already started chalking up a potential loss to baseless allegations of voter fraud following the script written by former President Donald Trump. Now, when we come back, a little bit about how this stupid thing works. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. We have, before I continue with the craziness of the California recall, I have this note from Scott who says, yeah, we probably will end up triggering the, maybe we can add, if we trigger it, we trigger it. We'll edit the thing, and it's not like it's going to cost us any money. We're supposedly monetized, or I guess we filled out the forms to be monetized with YouTube, but we never really rose to that level anyway. And then I think I don't know. At any rate, what our guest rapper, Raven, has done here is she's put in new lyrics to an existing song, one that I didn't recognize because, I'm never going to recognize this. But thankfully we have people like Scott who can recognize these things. Raven is essentially going off of the an established and released song by another name, somebody I would recognize. I know what that person does, but I don't know anything about them. Megan Thee Stallion, who has the song Body featuring Nicki Minaj. And so it makes some sense. I mean, that will speak directly to Nicki Minaj to rap to that song, I guess. But anyway, hopefully we don't set off any algorithms with it at all, and nobody bothers us. But I don't know. We'll update you on this if we find out later on that they were upset with this because it sounded too much like an actual, copyright protected song. Although technically Raven's song is copyright protected too, though I guess Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj could sue her for ripping off the major riffs, etc., or maybe even the musical bed. But she could claim it was a derivative work and something, and even so, it would still be copyrighted under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act because it's now been fixed in a medium of, even if it is online video. And so, okay, you get the point. This could become a real problem. We'll just delete it from the podcast if it becomes necessary in order to put the thing up on YouTube. Anyway, I don't know, although it's going to cause a headache because I'll put it up the regular way and then it'll trigger the algorithm and they'll say you got to remove the thing, and then I'll remove the thing and put it back up. And then the two versions. One will be unavailable on YouTube, but then the new version might go up, and I don't know how that does to our counts, etc. But thankfully, none of that matters for us. I don't know. So anyway, we'll give it a shot. And anyway, everybody should go listen to Raven's version of it, because it's about something much more interesting and understandable, believe it or not, microbiology. Then I don't know whether also not frequently a subject, probably just based on my understanding of what Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion produce musical works about. Probably just less often a topic on our show, I would guess, than even microbiology. All right. So now, where were we? Yes, the California recall. Right. So they're setting everything up to claim that everything was stolen from them. And there's a nice quote that sums that up from Lee Drutman, a senior fellow at the New America think tank who studies democracy. It's a great study. This is really becoming the standard GOP playbook. This is Democracy 101. If you don't have elections that are accepted and decisive, then you don't really have a democracy, because the alternative is violence or authoritarianism. There has, of course, been no evidence of voter fraud in California, and there couldn't be because the results aren't out yet. But even if it happened, there would be no results or no evidence of it yet. Elder's website asks voters to submit affidavits of evidence they witnessed of voter fraud, targeting those who would support him after Election Day. It was first reported by the Sacramento Bee. The site was registered anonymously in August, hours after NBC News contacted the Elder campaign Monday afternoon about the site. The disclaimer about his campaign having funded the site was added. We should all be concerned about election integrity, and we all want every proper vote to be counted. We've provided a link to an outside website that is providing an avenue for voters to document irregularities they encounter in this election, Elder spokesperson Ying Ma said in an email sent after the publication of this story. Of course, that's just a platitude that you would offer up if you were giving people a link to the address where if they saw something, they could write their report and file it as an affidavit. But giving them the text of an affidavit that states that they witnessed fraud that hasn't happened yet and won't happen is a little more problematic than she's able to cover up with that comment. With that said, we believe Larry will win on Election Day, and that whatever shenanigans there are will not stand in the way of him becoming the next governor and rescuing California from the disaster that is Gavin Newsom, she added. California has a long history of voting by mail, but decided to send every registered voter in the state a ballot for the first time in this race, which has stoked bogus rumors about the ballots and their designs. In an interview with NBC News on Monday, Elder repeatedly refused to say whether or not he would accept the results of Tuesday's election. Let's all work together to find out whether or not the election tomorrow is a fair election, he repeated several times when pressed. Concerns about voter fraud have simmered for decades among conservatives, but after Trump made his lies about the 2020 election a focus of the GOP, other candidates appear to be trying to exploit the conservative base's predisposition to believe in a massive conspiracy among Democrats, the media, and election officials to throw elections, even in races that are not particularly close or where Republican officials are in charge. A recent NBC News poll found that 60% of Republicans living in blue states are not confident that their state can administer elections fairly. And 59% of Republicans say believing that Trump won the 2020 election is an important part of being a Republican, according to a new CNN poll, even though, of course, Trump lost. No one should be surprised by the vote fraud claims. That is the holy grail in the GOP right now, said Jason Cable Rowe, C-A-B-E-L, how do you pronounce that? Jason Cable Rowe, a Republican strategist who has worked in California. He was the executive director of the Michigan GOP until he was forced out of the job for saying the 2020 election wasn't stolen, but that Trump blew it. It hasn't just been Republicans. In New York's Democratic primary for mayor this year, Eric Adams, who ultimately prevailed, tried to lay the groundwork during the campaign to claim voter fraud. In California, registered Democrats outnumber registered Republicans nearly 2-1. And Elder only has the support of around a quarter of the electorate. so it would not be particularly surprising if a Democratic governor survives an attempt to remove him from office. But most California Republicans think Newsom will be recalled, according to a recent UC Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies poll. And so, in the first big statewide election since 2020, Republican opinion leaders are already making preparations to cry foul if things don't turn out the way they hope, setting a precedent that could be followed by others in the future. Does anybody really believe the California recall election isn't rigged? Trump said in a statement on Monday. They're going to cheat. We know that, Elder said last week in Santa Barbara. Elder, the controversial talk radio host who is still alive, the last one, I guess, that's not what they said in NBC News. They say he's the controversial radio talk show host who is leading a field of 46 candidates vying to replace Newsom, tells supporters concerned about fraud to go to his website to report, quote, anything suspicious. Elder's campaign homepage, under the title Stop Fraud, links to the website StopCAFraud.com, California, StopCaliforniaFraud.com. The site solicits donations for him and asks supporters to sign a petition, quote, demanding a special session of the California legislature to investigate and ameliorate the twisted results of this 2021 recall election. What are the results? We don't know. We just know they're twisted. The site seems to presuppose the outcome of the race, claiming fraud has already been detected in the election and that Newsom won, even though Election Day is not until today. The page suggests voters may turn to the, quote, ammo box if they can't trust the ballot box. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, guns, violence, etc. They say that in America there are 4 boxes of liberty. They do not say this, by the way. The soap box. Well, does everybody understand that, by the way? I was always wondering about how long will it be before people don't understand what you mean by getting up on the soap box. Because one, soap hasn't come in a box that you could stand on for about 100 years. And I wonder about, whether that's just a dying idiom or not. But do the youngsters know about the soapbox thing? The soapbox upon which you might stand on a street corner to give a lecture about politics to try or to bring people to your campaign, right? The ballot box, everyone knows what that is, even though we don't use ballot boxes for the most part anymore. So that one lives on. The jury box, we still use that. And the ammo box, which, still gets used. But I remember, generally speaking, you only have ammunition comes in small cardboard boxes, I guess, if you're buying just a little bit about it. But they're talking about bulk ammo storage, which is only a select few among the gun nuts in the world. But okay. Anyway, so the 4 boxes of liberty, the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box. The website reads, pledging to bring legal cases. Will we now have to fight the California jury box in the hope that the final box, the one most akin to Pandora's, remains closed? They're just trying to bring in every box that they can think of here. Like, Pandora's box really has nothing to do with it. Okay. Elder, a lawyer with an Ivy League degree, initially denied Trump's baseless voter fraud allegations, but reversed course after backlash from conservatives because he got such bedrock principles instilled in him at his Ivy League school. I do believe that Joe Biden won the election fairly and squarely, Elder told the Sacramento Bee editorial board in August. Trump allies who are otherwise aligned with Elder raked him over the coals for the comment, and within hours, Elder tweeted, "Do I believe there were shenanigans in the 2020 presidential election? Yes." Since then, Elder has repeatedly claimed the 2020 election was rife with shenanigans and warned they're going to try that in this election right here, as he said on Fox News Sunday earlier this month. Those evidence-free claims have been echoed by conservative commentators like Fox News' Tomi Lahren, I didn't realize she was still around, who said on the conservative cable network, the only thing that will save Gavin Newsom is voter fraud, or the 2-to-1 Democratic registration, I guess. Neither Trump nor Elder have presented any evidence of fraud, and elections officials in California say there is none, because there can't be, because they don't release results early or count ballots early. So the end to that. But why is this even a concern? Well, I've referred a couple of times to the idiotic methodology that they use in California for recall elections. And I happened to come across on Twitter the Economist's write-up of just, how stupid this whole thing is. The recall election in California, simply, that's the title, a populist tool is being used for partisan ends. Well, that's what happens with populist tools. It's behind a paywall, too, so that's too bad. But anyway, what they were hinting at with this thing in their tweet, summarizing what they had in their article, I guess is really all we need to take away with this. Because of the way that California designs its recall process, Gavin Newsom could win 49% of the vote, remember, in a 46 or 56 way election, but still be replaced by someone with a much smaller share of support. And I guess the problem with the thing is, you're asked to vote yes or no on the recall. And I don't know whether you cast a separate vote for who you want then to be governor. But basically, if yes wins on the recall, then basically I think it chucks Newsom out. So if a majority of voters vote yes on the recall, but nobody votes, to replace him with, or I guess if it was a Newsom versus Elder campaign, right? If for whatever reason turnout is poor and lots of third-party candidates get votes, and Newsom wins 49% of the overall vote, but Elder gets 12% of the vote, and a bunch of 50 other minor characters split up the rest of the vote. The way it works in California, if the majority votes for recall, Newsom's out, and then I guess disqualified from collecting any other votes, and the next highest vote getter wins the election, is what seems like they're saying. I really don't know enough about the mechanics of the way it works in California, but everybody's been hinting at that all along by saying it's a must that you vote no against the recall, and because otherwise you end up with one of these fringy idiots in place. And, I would think that maybe they realized it doesn't make any particular sense to say, okay, the recall is a separate vote. And then you say, all right, so it's basically a vote to vacate the office, after which you can then vote for any of the candidates, including Newsom. And if Newsom were to get a majority, he'd be returned to office. But they might have figured in writing this law, well, that's stupid. You already just said, that you didn't want him in office. Why would you reinstall him in office, particularly if he only got a minority, a plurality of the vote the second time around, rather than winning majority the first time around? And that makes a certain amount of sense. But yeah, otherwise, then you just say, well, I know, all I know is I don't like Gavin Newsom, but I don't like anybody else either. And that ends up with it being, well, whoever gets the most votes besides him, if the yes question wins, becomes governor, which is absolutely crazy. Anyway, so now you know exactly why it was so important, why everybody was pushing, and why you still have time, if you are a registered voter in California and haven't cast a ballot, to show up today at what they used to call Election Day and vote no on the recall and make sure that something that stupid doesn't actually happen. But, because it's out there and stupid, I guess you got to look out for the possibility of it happening. All right, what other things have I put aside here? In terms of little tidbits, as people are working through the Joe Manchin meltdown of the weekend, I saw this interesting quote picked up and tweeted by Burgess Everett of Politico, who I guess was out interviewing anybody he could get a hold of, I guess, about what's going to happen with reconciliation now with Manchin out there stomping his feet. Asked if he was aligned with Manchin on reconciliation, John Tester cracked this following line that grabbed me. Are you crazy? Are you trying to get me shot? I'd never, ever want to be aligned with Joe Manchin. My wife would divorce me. Wow, that's a pretty strong statement. Joe is Joe. We both have similar values, but we certainly don't think alike. I thought that was a pretty interesting description of the dynamics of what's going on inside the Senate Democratic caucus. That was pretty amazing. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but yeah, I would have thought that there would be a little more natural affinity between them, but I think he puts it pretty correctly. We do agree on a lot of things, but we don't approach things the same way and don't think about things the same way. And I guess, that's a good reminder. So I appreciated knowing that, and I appreciated the frankness of the quote. Let's see, what other things have I put aside here? Yeah, that kind of reminds me. There's a couple other things. One, I'll skip this one. Let me get down to this. We're really jumping around here, so kind of an incoherent show, but a lot of items that I wanted to bring to your attention. Didn't want to wait for Friday. I don't know what I'm going to do with Friday now. Anyway, here's a bit. The QAnon situation that we've all feared would come to pass has come to pass. I mean, that already happened, I guess, in the sense that, somebody showed up with an AR-15 at Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C., but thankfully he didn't actually shoot anyone, but we were all worried about somebody who, would be less patient than this person and start shooting people, maybe out of frustration from not being able to find the imaginary basement sex dungeon. This guy was actually, as QAnon types go, fairly reasonable. He shows up with an AR-15, an unreasonable thing to do, demands to know where the child sex dungeon is so that he can liberate all the children being held captive there, only to find out that there's not even a basement, much less a sex dungeon. And he grows confused and says, I guess maybe I had it wrong. And then, gets arrested for doing what he was doing. But, at this point, you now say, thank God for that sort of, reasoning ability to say, I guess I've been proven wrong here. Maybe I should just stop. But we all worried about the time when someone less patient would have the same delusion. And I guess it's happening. Not just the guy who showed up with bombs strapped to himself at the Hoover Dam, but he didn't set off his bomb either. So I guess we're still counting that guy as more reasonable than this one. And this one has not explicitly discussed his QAnon motivations yet, but he has discussed his motivations. He just hasn't attributed them to Q. But once you hear how horrible the story is and what his motivations were, you won't have much doubt that that's what we're witnessing. This, and NBC is having a big day here. NBC News article from September 9th, suspect in Florida quadruple homicide, falsely believed he was saving sex trafficking victim, authorities say. It was all a figment of his imagination, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd said on Thursday. So you're beginning to see exactly how, the gruesome dimensions of this story. Essentially, a QAnon type nut has done, that unthinkable thing, which is to say, identified, targeted, and murdered a random suburban family just minding their own business because he heard somewhere that they were sex traffickers and keeping a child prisoner. And they weren't. But in addition to he didn't just murder them. Now here's the story from NBC News' Antonio Planas. A Marine veteran, thank you for your service, something. A Marine veteran charged with the murders of 4 people this week in a Florida home, including a 3-month-old baby. Like, in the olden days, don't we walk around saying, fry him, hang him, shoot him, throw him off a cliff. Shot a 3-month-old baby. Targeting the family because he believed, and we all have to be free to follow our own beliefs, right? Vaccines, murders of the neighbors, whatever it is. We will not be suppressing any opinions here today, right? 3-month-old baby, targeted the family because he believed they were holding a child sex trafficking victim, who authorities say was a, quote, figment of his imagination. Authorities say the man, Brian Riley, 33, ambushed the family by first conducting pre-dawn, quote, reconnaissance Sunday at the home in Lakeland, about 40 miles east of Tampa. He suspected that a suicidal child by the name of Amber, Amber Alert, Amber was being victimized in the home, and he intended to save her, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd said Thursday. Riley eventually shot his way into the home, carrying multiple firearms and wearing a bulletproof vest, before he systematically killed the victims, who had been asleep only moments before, Judd said at a news conference. I mean, this is the stuff of nightmares. And by the way, when you see the guy, he's also apparently an alleged, we're just alleging here, steroid abuser. So he's this giant behemoth weightlifter, crazy lunatic in body armor. He's like the Terminator coming into your house on an imaginary mission to save somebody who doesn't exist and isn't there and doesn't even have a name like anyone in the, there's no mistake to be made. He just imagined the whole thing, thanks to, I guess, steroids and probably, some other things as well, and a steady diet, clearly, of QAnon-like propaganda. Well, we know that he was seeking out Amber, who wanted to commit suicide, who was the victim of sex trafficking, and it was all a figment of his imagination, Sheriff Judd said. Riley left his home about 1 a.m. Sunday, Judd said. Officers responded to the Lakeland residence shortly before 4:30 a.m., officials said. Once in the home, ready for this one? Trigger warning, I guess. Really, I should have done it a long time ago. But once in the home, Riley, quote, tortured. I can't believe NBC News using torture. Riley tortured an 11-year-old girl by shooting her multiple times after she was unable to tell him where Amber was, Judd said. Despite having been shot several times, the girl survived and spoke with police about her terrifying encounter. I mean, you see what's going on here? I'll read a little more. And this is her statement. And that's when he called me Amber. She said, I'm not Amber, Judd said the girl, the attack's lone survivor, told investigators. He counted down and said 3, 2, 1 before shooting the girl, Judd said. The girl recalled being shot at least 2 more times. As she was bleeding and in distress, Riley asked her whether she knew why he had to kill her parents, Judd said. Because they're sex traffickers, Judd said, he told the girl. The girl escaped with her life by playing dead and praying, Judd said. So, I mean, essentially what you see happening here is the guy breaks in, kills everybody except the 11-year-old girl, who he decides to stand over and says, tell me where you're hiding Amber. Or are you Amber? And she says, I don't know what you're talking about. And he says, you better tell me where Amber is or I'll shoot you. I'm not kidding. I'm counting down. 3, 2, 1. She still doesn't know. She has nothing to say. So he shoots her and then says he's going to do it again and tortures her by doing this 2, 3 times. I'm counting down. You better tell me. I'm not kidding. I'll keep shooting you until you tell me. This is a guy who's like, I'm going to save the sex trafficked girl. Decides torturing a local 11-year-old is a pretty legitimate way of doing this. I mean, is she in on it? Is she keeping the captive? He thinks that the parents are doing it. Does he really think that the 11-year-old girl is doing it? I don't know. I mean, obviously he's not working on any logical level at this point. But this is happening now. This is the nightmare of QAnon people becoming delusional and thinking that some random family, your family, are sex trafficking secretly. And there's no evidence of your sex trafficking because you're not sex trafficking, but really he thinks that there's no evidence of it because you're very cleverly hiding it all. But he'll get all the information out of you by torturing your 11-year-old. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. There's more about it. They identify the victims, the family members. There's the grandmother is killed in this, 62-year-old grandmother, the 33-year-old mom, 40-year-old dad in all of this, Justice Gleason, and then the 33-year-old woman, who they're not married, apparently. They're one of them has the 11-year-old is Mr. Gleason's daughter from a previous marriage. The 33-year-old woman and her 3-month-old boy, the product of this relationship. Unbelievable.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I feel like this story gets a little bit crazier, even just in terms of the randomness with which this whole thing plays out, which is what makes it so scary. I'm going to read a little bit more of this just to scare the hell out of you a little more. I don't understand. I mean, I'm doing it because I don't understand why this isn't a major topic of conversation. There are QAnon influenced, obviously. I mean, he still hasn't said Q anything. I don't think it's not in this article, and they haven't updated this article. I wouldn't be surprised if there was reporting that had more now, although in all likelihood, whoever ends up representing the guy, public defender or whatever, is probably like, do not speak to anyone. You're only making things worse. But that we're not talking about the fact that we've now reached the stage where QAnon-influenced wackos are breaking into random suburban homes and insisting that they have the right to torture and execute everyone inside because something imaginary. But, you know, as we say, we all have to follow our own beliefs, and you shouldn't be bullied into not murdering your neighbors or people in a random neighborhood that you happen to have come across for no particular reason. I mean, that's part of the story here, too. Judd, the sheriff, said Riley confronted Gleason. That's the guy in the house. And I guess we should give everybody's background here. One victim identified as Justice Gleason, 40. The other victims were described as a 33-year-old woman, whose name they don't yet give, but they get to it later on, so I don't know why they don't do it here. Her 3-month-old boy and the baby's 62-year-old grandmother, WFLA, reported. Facebook posts and public records show that Gleason was in a relationship with Teresa Lanham and that they had a baby boy, Jody, in May. Lanham's mother, Catherine Delgado, owned the property and lived there. Gleason also had an 11-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. So, Riley is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 7 counts of attempted murder of a law enforcement officer, because he has a shootout with the cops later, 2 counts of shooting into a building, 2 counts of armed burglary with assault and battery, and second-degree arson and attempted murder in the first degree with a weapon, the sheriff's office said. Okay, well, lots of charges, obviously. Riley said at the court hearing Monday that he intended to hire a lawyer. A public defender was appointed in the meantime. His arraignment is scheduled for October 12th, a court official said Thursday. A representative with the public defender's office could not be immediately reached for comment. Judd said Riley confronted Gleason late Saturday afternoon and asked about someone named Amber. He just approached the house, I guess, saw Gleason outside and said, I want to see Amber. who Riley said was suicidal. Gleason and one of the women who were killed repeatedly told him that there was no Amber at the home and that police were going to be called. I'm sure, though, Riley was like, well, that's exactly what I thought you'd say. You're not going to admit that you're sex trafficking a suicidal girl or whatever. And Riley then saw the 11-year-old girl who was in the yard with her father, Judd said. Riley left angrily before police arrived, Judd said. Riley was in the area Saturday, Judd said, because shortly before he spoke with Gleason, this is how random this is, he had met a friend who offered him a first aid kit because Riley said he was going to help with Hurricane Ida relief. So I don't know how that all sets up, but essentially, I'm going to go help with Hurricane Ida relief. Well, I have a first aid kit. You want to take that with you? Sure. Well, meet me at my house. So he goes over, he gets the first aid kit, and then just goes, I see a neighbor of yours, not mine. I see a neighbor. I guess that's probably the people who are holding Amber captive, even though she's suicidal, or maybe she's suicidal because she's being held captive and being sex trafficked. I gotta go confront them, and if I don't get satisfaction, I guess I'll have to murder them later on. But thanks for the first aid kit. Obviously, this guy is, on a planet of his own at this point. So there's not words to adequately describe the rage that we all feel about what he did to this innocent family, Judd said. There's a lot of Judd in here. They happen to be the unfortunate ones that he passed by that afternoon, where he saw the man and an 11-year-old girl. These just happen to be the unfortunate people that he picked on. That's it. That's all there is to it. Judd said investigators pieced together a possible motive by speaking to witnesses, including Riley and his girlfriend. Witnesses told investigators that Riley had not made comments before the shootings that he was planning violence. So no warning. Riley's girlfriend told investigators that he recently claimed he could speak, quote, directly to God, Judd said. Authorities said that before he entered the home, Riley staked out the scene and set 2 vehicles on fire as a diversion. He laid out glow sticks leading to a path to the home in what officials said may have been an attempt to draw officers into an ambush. Riley spent 4 years with the Marines, 3 years as a reservist, serving in Afghanistan and Iraq, Judd said. He was honorably discharged and worked security for ESS Global Corporation, WFLA reported. Judd said Riley made his way into the residence by shooting through a glass back door. Inside, he first killed the grandmother. He then made his way into a bathroom where he killed the 3 other victims who were hiding from him. He also found the young girl there, Judd said. When officers arrived, 5 deputies and a Lakeland police officer fired 59 rounds, wounding Riley. So lots of good shooting going on there. Riley had fired more than 100 rounds, Judd said, and investigators recovered 3 of his firearms. Riley was wounded in his stomach by gunfire that went through his protective vest, Judd said. He tried to take an officer's gun while he was being treated by emergency medical responders as he was being transported, but he was subdued, authorities said. Riley told investigators that he was on methamphetamines, but investigators said they had not confirmed that. They have evidence that he was illegally abusing steroids, Judd said. After he was wounded, Riley took off his bulletproof vest, dropped his weapons, and went outside where he surrendered, Judd said. Judd was visibly angry throughout Thursday's media briefing, which lasted more than 30 minutes. He called Riley a mass murderer, an evil human being, and a coward. But he spoke with pride when he discussed the courage and awareness of the young survivor and the courage that she had showed amid unconscionable horror. I can't underscore enough her bravery. I can't underscore enough her ability to think through how to survive when she has just witnessed her father, her baby brother, and her stepmother viciously murdered right before her very eyes, Judd said. That's true. I don't know how much time I really wanted to spend discussing that, but we knew that, but I don't know. Well, Sheriff Judd really putting himself out in front of this press conference. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't feel the same outrage? And just the idea of this steroid enhanced monster busting into somebody's house loaded for bear with a bulletproof vest on. And by the way, the only thing that finally convinced him to surrender to authorities was being shot. I guess there's just really nothing you can do with these guys. The only choice, they don't recognize anything but being shot. And you can either shoot them preemptively, which will get you in trouble, or wait for them to show up and start randomly murdering suburban families about whom they imagined the worst possible things, even though there's no basis in reality for it, and then try to have a shootout with them and see who wins. But for all the people out there just getting lulls out of the QAnon thing, you're now murdering people. I just thought I might bring that to your attention. Not that you're listening to the show or heeding my words about it, but, it's no longer a theoretical danger. And I'm just kind of amazed that that's not national news. It was just like a Florida local interest story. I mean, I know shootings don't interest anybody anymore, even mass shootings. But, how much national distribution did it get when somebody said that they're, Antifa and cement milkshakes, for 3 days, all the intellectual dark web was talking about what they're doing, and cement milkshakes, and somebody put a tampon in a Starbucks for a cop, and that didn't happen, but that got coverage for days too. A QAnon crazy has just started breaking into local homes, murdering people, accusing them of being sex traffickers with no basis, and torturing 11-year-old girls. By the way, in order to stop the torture of 11-year-old girls, he's now on a crusade to torture 11-year-old girls. But, why would that occur to him? And, just kind of no discussion of that. But tax the rich dress, I guess I'm guilty of that too. But now I feel absolved. I've atoned for that by telling you the terrible story of what happened recently in Florida. All right. There is more. And I guess in many ways equally concerning. I don't know where to turn to next. I mean, maybe just based on the fact that sex trafficking is an element. Should I turn to this? This has nothing to do with what happened here in Florida, but a story I grabbed from Crooks and Liars, who has this news. Judge allows sex trafficking suit against ex-Fox anchor Ed Henry. What? I had no idea. What the hell is this about? I imagine it's something slightly different, but Ed Henry, the subheader says, tried unsuccessfully to get the case against him dismissed, but apparently handcuffing the victim and threatening her did not sit well with the judge. A story posted over at Crooks and Liars by Red Painter. Here's the news. Ex-Fox News anchor Ed Henry tried unsuccessfully to have a lawsuit filed by former Fox Business staffer Jennifer Eckert against him for sex trafficking, retaliatory harassment, revenge porn, and gender-motivated violence in the form of sexual assault and rape dismissed. It didn't work. The lawsuit led to his firing from Fox News back in the summer of 2020. I'd forgotten all about that. At the time, it was related to allegations of sexual misconduct on the job. His 2016 time out from his job at Fox, forgot about that too, was also related to sexual misconduct with a hostess in Las Vegas while Henry was covering the 2016 campaign. So this goes back pretty far. Law and Crime reports, linked herein, that Henry and Fox News tried to get numerous claims dismissed and were only partially successful. The case stems from allegations made by an ex-associate producer, Jennifer Eckert, involving allegations that legally fall under sex trafficking, although they are more like quid pro quo or sex in exchange for personal or professional trade. In her lawsuit, Eckert stated that after Henry threatened her job if she didn't have sex with him, it's pretty straightforward, I guess, he went farther. He hit her. Eckert lawyer Michael John Williman wrote in the complaint, he handcuffed her. What? He bruised her up. He called her a whore. He told her she doesn't have a choice. That was done in the context of threatening her. I think so, yeah. Either she would have sex with Henry or lose her job. And, I mean, I imagine most people probably believe that from a powerful figure. But if he also, like, in what context? Where were they? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't even matter. But just the idea that a well-known, the Fox anchor, handcuffing you and smacking you. I guess at that point, you're like, this guy obviously believes he can do anything. Maybe he's right. Maybe he can fire me and all this. The opinion of U.S. District Judge Ronnie Abrams states, she asserts that Henry is liable for sex trafficking because she says he used empty promises of career advancement to defraud her into coming to his hotel room, then used force to cause her to have sexual intercourse with him. To be sure, this is not a conventional claim of sex trafficking. Eckert has not alleged, for example, that Henry forced her into prostitution or sexual slavery. But didn't he? He didn't do so by giving her away to anybody else. He just said, you're now essentially my sexual slave. You'll have sex with me or else. You'll lose your job and who knows what else once he's handcuffing her and smacking her. I mean, I don't know. I guess I see what he's talking about. And, it's good of him for having an open enough mind not to dismiss it. Although this is not what the public thinks of when they hear the phrase sex trafficking, it apparently does fall under the relatively broad language of the applicable statute through the usage of force or fraud to cause a person to engage in a sex act for a thing of value. All right. In addition to the charge of sex trafficking against Henry personally, the judge allowed multiple harassment-related counts against Fox News to continue as well. In her ruling, I was wondering about that. Ronnie Abrams, that doesn't tell me, it's not necessarily Ronald, is it? And I thought about that just afterwards, and I said, did they say already? And I missed it, but here's the answer. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that, but okay. In addition to the charge, the ones against Fox News continue. In her ruling, the judge stated, at this juncture, the court concludes that Eckert has plausibly alleged that the network knew or should have known about Henry's sexually harassing behavior, but not necessarily the specific conduct that amounts to sex trafficking. I think that's probably reasonable. Eckert is pleased, for sure. Her attorney's statement to Law and Crime said neither Fox News nor Ed Henry succeeded in their early attempts to escape liability as to Ms. Eckert's allegations of rape, sexual assault, and unlawful termination. Both parties remain in the case with respect to these important allegations. Moreover, the court made clear that Mr. Henry acted completely inappropriately in attempting to victim shame our client during this litigation. We intend on pushing this case forward expeditiously and asking a jury to hold both Fox News and Mr. Henry accountable for their alleged conduct. And it's a good call. He obviously has a history of it here. And clearly, he was confident in his ability to be able to get people of real substance in the organization hired and fired based on his say-so, even though they already knew he was a sexual harasser. And you might, at some point, wonder, do we need to look into these allegations that he's making about Jennifer Eckert and why she needs to be fired, given that he's a known sexual harasser? I mean, does anybody suspect that he might be doing any of this stuff? This is just another instance of powerful men at Fox News abusing their status and power to take advantage of women employed at the same network. Keep an eye on this story. Advice well taken. The place was a lunatic sex den. I mean, between Roger Ailes himself and the things he did and whatever N. Henry was up to, and how many others were credibly accused, and Bill O'Reilly and people making accusations about Sean Hannity, and I guess they haven't stuck yet, but O'Reilly, of course, those did, and so many others, and other women making allegations and insisting that they had been harassed. I mean, that's the sex dungeon that needs to be shut down. That place is crazy. I missed this story about Ed Henry entirely, and I guess I'm glad I did up until now. But now the awful truth of it is available for our review. And okay, I thought I might bring you up to date on that one. Maybe you missed it too, or maybe at least these details. Wow. So that was a bit of a surprise. In other news that I wanted to share with you, let's see. Let me click on a couple of these other things. Yes. This was a bit about Veronica Wolski that I had missed before. The COVID denier who recently died. One of the many, but one of the ones we mentioned earlier. Will Sommer tweeting about her situation as well the other day. News in QAnon world today. Veronica Wolski, COVID denier known for hanging QAnon signs on bridges, died of COVID last night. This was tweeted yesterday. QAnon believers, led by Lynn Wood, had been deluging the hospital where she was with demands that she receive ivermectin. Cops were called last night amid bomb threats. And I did see elsewhere, maybe I can dig up the tweets, but Lynn Wood, among others, threatening the hospital where she was being treated, threatening to see them charged with murder if she died without being administered ivermectin or without being released to some other place where they would agree to treat her with ivermectin. So, I mean, crazy to the end. Anyway, the next change of direction comes from this front page post by Lauren Floyd over at Daily Kos from Sunday, the 12th. This is kind of interesting. We will want to keep an eye on this. 6 officers accused of ending up on the wrong side of the attempted coup, the January 6th attack, are shielded from the public eye. Yes. You may have heard about this story the other day, the basic gist of which, before I start reading, was that there are 6 officers that the Capitol Police Force brass have now said are, being dismissed, disciplined, whatever, but that they basically that was coming down on them because they, played for the other team on January 6th, as other people have suspected was the case with at least a few officers. But I guess their names aren't being released and we're not being told exactly what they did. I mean, that's some sensitive stuff. I could see why they might sit on it for a little while, but I think we'll all want to know. 3 violations of conduct unbecoming. Lauren begins. 1 for failure to comply with directives. 1 for improper remarks. And 1 violation for improper dissemination of information. That's all pretty cloudy. This was the alleged work of Capitol Police officers, the Washington, D.C.-based police force announced on Saturday as part of 38 internal investigations into the deadly attack on the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Disciplinary action was recommended in the 6 cases, and another case involving an officer accused of unsatisfactory performance and conduct unbecoming is still pending, Capitol Police announced. This week, the U.S. Capitol Police provided the Department of Justice provided the Department of Justice the administrative cases as part of the ongoing discovery production in the prosecution of the January 6th rioters, Capitol Police wrote in a news release of the announcement. Officer names, witness names, and complainant names were redacted. The department, however, is committed to accountability when officers fail to meet the standards governed by USCP policies and the congressional community's expectations, police added. Just not right away, I guess. The 6 sustained cases should not diminish the heroic efforts of the United States Capitol Police officers, I guess in general. Capitol Police said on January 6th, the bravery and courage exhibited by the vast majority of our employees was inspiring. Capitol Police had more than 1,200 workers on duty during the riot, incited when former President Donald Trump called for his supporters to block Congress from certifying then President-elect Joe Biden's Electoral College victory. Capitol Police officer Brian Sicknick was beaten on video and killed in the process. 1 Capitol Police officer and 3 D.C. Metropolitan Police officers killed themselves after the attack. and more than 570 suspects have been charged in connection to the riot, The Hill reported. And let's see, some embedded video that comes with a trigger warning, but we won't watch the video. When Metropolitan Police Officer Michael Fanone, remember him? Was it Fanone or Fanone? Testified before Congress that Trump supporters almost killed him in a violent beating that January day. He was thanked with a threatening voicemail message from an anonymous sender. I guess that's what's embedded in the video. The caller said in his disgusting message, and it is censored here, so we'll go with the censored version. Yeah, this is for Michael Fanone. I wonder how he pronounced it. Metropolitan Police Officer. You're on trial right now, lying and not. You want an Emmy? An Oscar? What are you trying to go for here? You're so full of S, you little effing ever, I guess. You're a little P word, one of the various P words. Man, I could slap you up the side of your head with a backhand and knock you out, you get the idea. It's just, whatever. It goes on for some time. There's actually 3 paragraphs of this stuff. Fanone asked CNN not to censor the audio when the network played it. I don't know if they did or not. This is what happens to people that tell the truth in Trump's America, Fanone said. The NAACP, Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, and the civil rights legal firm Cohen, Milstein, Sellers, and Toll filed a lawsuit against the former commander-in-chief in federal court. That would be Trump. NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson said in a statement in February that Trump needs to be held accountable, quote, for deliberately inciting and colluding with white supremacists to stage a coup, and for his continuing efforts to disenfranchise African American voters. The insurrection was the culmination of a carefully orchestrated, months-long plan to destroy democracy, to block the results of a fair and democratic election, and to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of African American voters who cast valid ballots, Johnson added. What's worse, only time will tell how successful insurrectionists truly were. It's how we react to that line being crossed that will determine whether they'll try again, Atlantic magazine contributor Zeynep Tufekci, who has lived through 4 coups in Turkey, told NPR. And that's bad news because Zeynep Tufekci usually turns out to be right about these things. There's another rally dubbed Justice for J6 planned for September 18th, which I believe is this Saturday. Is it Saturday or Friday? Today's 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. Yeah, Saturday. And officers have said violent rhetoric about the rally increased after a rioter was shot and killed attempting to breach the Capitol in January. They're all talking about, of course, what's her name? Ashley Babbitt. So I guess that's got them riled up. After January 6th, we made department-wide changes to the way we gather and share intelligence internally and externally, Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger said in a statement CNN obtained. I am confident the work we're doing now will make sure our officers have what they need to keep everyone safe. So hopefully that's the case on September 17th, unless, of course, you're talking about keeping the rioters safe, in which case I don't really care. But hopefully giving them all they need to make sure they're safe includes the stuff they need to, deliver the message that needs to be delivered to these idiots that they didn't get on January 6th. We were far too polite with them. All right. I think that's probably all we have time for in terms of bringing new stories to your attention for today. But tomorrow, a more organized show as we are rejoined by Greg and his Rafto stories. Thursday, we're winging it. Don't know how we're going to handle it exactly, whether we're going to have to go with rerun or pre-recorded show. I've got actually plenty to do in order to get ready for Thursday. All the atoning I need to do, for instance. But plenty of other work too, so I'm not certain how much time we'll have. But we should be back to atone for that on Friday. And that makes for at least another 2 shows this week where we'll have an opportunity to sort of sift through the things that haven't made it to air just yet but are still sitting in pocket because they're important. And we want to get them on record before they develop any further so that you have the context you need to be able to interpret these stories as they expand along the way. Well, anything that we haven't covered here today, almost certainly on the agenda for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next as Justice Putnam brings you his roundup of the news. And we've got a little bit of time here, so let's preview some of this of today's show. Today's Tarrytown Chowder Tuesday. He's got like a little menu name for each day of the week, and we don't always get to it. What about today? Starting off in the Bistro Cafe, unvaccinated healthy people are not exempt from getting ill. That is definitely true. Then, on the rest of the menu, despite loud GOP opposition, the majority of Americans support COVID-19 mandates. We know that. House Republicans are outraged that Congress might fund the Presidio National Park in San Francisco. Obviously, for some real reason, we'll all figure that out later. The Department of Justice also will increase oversight of police reform monitors. And after his big break, well, they moved to the chef's table, where North Korea says it has tested several new long-range cruise missiles.
From netrootsradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Always an issue of concern whenever North Korea is testing new missiles. And lastly, a World Bank report found that climate change could force over 250 million people to move from their homes by 2050. That doesn't mean you should go into the real estate business, though. They can't just sell those homes, right? More next.